We will have the first call with us from Mona Al-Shazli. Mona Makram Ebeid, I'm sorry. Mona Makram Ebeid, Dr. Mona Makram Ebeid. Hello?
Yes, I was hoping that you pronounced my name properly.
I'm sorry for that. Hello, doctor, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, I'm good. Can you please tell us and describe for us the situation that is going on in Egypt now?
Well, of course, the situation is very tense after all the violence that we have seen.
Yeah.
And we are appalled really by the foreign media, because instead of exposing the true image of the abysmal failures of the past regime and its continued violations of human rights and restriction of civil liberties, the Western media has stood in full support of this terrorist organization that has acted against the will of the people. And whereas the past president has been removed by popular impeachment, and the 30 million people who took to the street and demanded the ouster of this whole regime, we were astounded by the bias of the Western media towards the former ruling party in Egypt. I think this was shameful because they were portraying the events in complete denial of the popular will of the people, who stand staunchly behind the government, behind the army, behind the heroic leader of the army and the courageous security forces. The Copts have become since the 30th. Before this, all through the leadership of the past president, the Copts there was an increase of sectarian violence.
Yes.
But since the 30th of June, the Copts have become the target of violence. Their churches are being ransacked. They're being torched. Every day we see the amount of churches that have been ransacked, approximately 62 or 65 of them.
Yes, I heard they are around 65 or 70 churches.
Yes, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
Many of the Christians have been brutally maltreated. Some have died under torture. But one thing that I want to tell you, the Christians did not want the West to interfere on their behalf.
Yes.
Because they knew that this is exactly what the extremist organization wanted. They wanted the church to reclaim or to complain so that they get Western interference under any pretense.
Yes.
Although the West has never bothered before about the violations committed against the Christians, against human rights, and now, more than ever, the Copts do not want their interference.
Yes.
Egypt is a proud country. Egyptians have lived through a bumpy existence, it's true, between its Muslim and Christian, but it has endured for thousands of years. And they know that together they will overcome these dramatic movements, these dramatic moments against terrorists and bigots and radical extremists. Because what is at stake, and I'm glad that you talked about SOS,
yes.
Because what is at stake today is not sectarian violence, no matter how ugly it is, but it is the struggle of a whole population for their identity. It's
yes.
a struggle for the soul of Egypt, for a
yes.
civil, democratic, modern and secular state. Modern
right.
and secular Egypt. And I want to underline that the security forces have dispersed a protest camp, both protest camps in Rabaa and in Narda, with as much restraint as they could. And I believe that the government has tried everything before that, mediation, asking them, to renounce violence, but there was no response to all this. So the Egyptians, what they're doing today, they are reclaiming their homeland, which had been hijacked by a terrorist organization who wished to impose its own vision of a theocratic state, of an Islamic state.
Yes.
And this was refused by both Muslims and Christians. And I wonder what the Western media what do they call nonviolence? What do they call nonviolence? The crimes that they see in Kardassa, do you call this nonviolence? Mutilating and exposing the bodies of the security forces in a heinous crime, do you call this nonviolence?
Of course not.
But thank God the Egyptian Christians, under the very wise leadership of their highly respected Pope, have adamantly refused, as I said, any foreign intervention. And it might seem ironic to you, but never have Muslims and Christians been linked in such solidarity as they are now, because they know that in spite of these naked acts of sectarian hatred, they know that what is at stake is the soul of Egypt, is their own identity. What Morsi has done during a whole year, he has betrayed democracy. And what is the American administration today, by its different statements, is alienating almost every faction in Egypt.
Yes.
The U.S. must understand that it cannot determine Egypt's future. Mm-hmm. And now that they are thinking again of reviewing their statements, the U.S. needs to get their priorities right and not to stand by radical extremists against the popular will of the people of Egypt.
Yes.
On the contrary, they should help today Egyptians to go through this complex transition, because although it is at once heart-rending, it is a poignant opportunity for the successful implementation of the reforms necessary to achieve a sustainable democracy through the roadmap that was established by the interim civilian government. Yes. It is a chance for Egyptians to fully appreciate the value of the Constitution, which we hope will get a popular consensus. We want the protection of fundamental freedom and the implementation of citizenship and justice for all Egyptians. Yes. We want them to promote the rule of law and civil society, and to establish a government of laws, not a government of men. Yes. And that is what the West should help to promote in order to safeguard their own interests in the region and retain the cordial relations they have had for all these years. Because whatever happens to Egypt will have repercussions on the whole region. And that's why it is very, very important to understand exactly what is happening on the ground and not listen to Western media, which is manipulating the truth and which is totally biased, showing as if the people are the terrorists and not the real terrorists. So there must be really Egyptians abroad should stand up to this, should stand against the manipulation of the Western media.
And also, Doctor, here at MISAT, we are trying to show this. We are trying to show the people this, and this is why there's this new program, SOS, to show people what's going on and to show everything. And I wanted to underline what you said, that between Christians and Muslims, there have never been any problems. Egypt has been through a lot of
problems. I said it's been a bumpy relationship.
It's been a bumpy ride through the years. But there have never been the problems that's going on.
It has endured for all these centuries, and no one will be able to break that, because and particularly now, it is very interesting that never have they been in such solidarity. I mean, the Muslims today are guarding the churches. Everybody is appalled by the ransacking, the pillage of the churches, with no respect for anything that they have done. They have done, of course, a lot for against the mosques and against government premises, but everybody is really appalled by the torching and the ransacking of the churches, and making the Copts really the target of sectarian violence, of all their frustrations coming up, thinking that that when they attack the Copts, the West is going to interfere. And the Copts, and through their wonderful Pope, have refused any interference from anyone.
And this is what we like to hear, that that the problems that are going on in Egypt are not solved by outer countries, but is solved by Egypt itself and by the people inside Egypt.
Absolutely, and together they will overcome these dramatic movements. These dramatic movements, because they know that it is the struggle of a whole population for their identity that was stolen. And what they want is to establish a civil, democratic, secular, and modern state, and it is a struggle for the soul of Egypt. Don't forget that Egypt's revolution in 2011, it has rippled far and wide all over.
Yes.
I mean, Egypt is not a small country. It is a pivotal country in the region. It's one of the most ancient countries in the world. And that's what I have to say. I mean,
thank you, Dr. Mona Makram Ebeid, the former parliamentarian. Thank you for everything you have said, and this is our mission, that we are trying to prove to everyone what is going on in Egypt and how everything is going. And if there is anything else you want to say, you want to send a message to the people, you can tell us now. If there is any message you want to say. No, I just
wanted to say the resilience and the defiance of the Egyptian people was put in doubt by the media. It continued to portray the Egyptian people and the Egyptian army as the aggressors and the terrorists as the victims. So, I mean, this is shameful. They're losing their credibility, because today the people are standing very staunchly and solidly behind the army, the government, and the security forces. The army has helped the safe exit of the protesters. This is also something that the Western media has never shown. And they have tried all their best before they could, disperse the protesters in the two protest camps, which had nothing peaceful about them. The amount of weapons that they have found now, and today one of the most important problems today in Egypt is the amount of weapons that are circulating. They came from Libya, they came from Hamas, they came from the Sinai, and so on. So this is one of the main problems today that is threatening the security. But thank God the police, the security forces, unlike in the 25th of January, the first revolution, when they left the field, now they are there all the time, and they are supported by the armed forces, and they're particularly supported by the people of Egypt.
Thank you, Dr. Mona. Thank you, Dr. Mona Makram Ebeid, the former parliamentarian. Thank you for everything you have said.